Hello, Zhang Chang.
Can you hear me?
Yep. Hello, Zhang Chang.
Can you hear me?
Yep. Yep.
All right, it is 7:05, so we can go ahead and get started. Okay. Thank you to everybody who is here on Zoom, but also everybody who's watching through YouTube and Facebook live streams. Welcome. Yeah, so today we are going to be having our Ocean Providence Paducah deep dive. I will start us off with an opening prayer, so please join me in prayer. Dear Heavenly Parents, Jesus and Jimmy Hutchin, Tony, all of our good ancestors in the spirit world, good evening, afternoon, morning, whatever time it is for everyone around the world here. We thank you so much for allowing us to come together today to continue doing yeah, our Ocean Providence Syndicate. I really pray that, as usual, you are able to be here with us and that you're able to speak through the speaker, through the words that we are going to be reading today, and that you are able to, really that we're able to really feel inspiration and also motivation for Ocean Providence moving forward with fulfilling your will. We really pray, especially for True Mother and her safety and her health, and the situation with the Korean court. We really pray that everything that we do, including the Sundukge call, can be used as some kind of condition and offering up to the spirit world to help better that situation. Today, as we talk about the Mother's era and Ocean era, I really pray that we can really find a way, um, find inspiration to help support Mother, to support the Ocean Providence as much as we can. We thank you so much. We pray for everyone around the world who is both watching and also those who aren't watching and are working on Providence. We really pray for their safety and health, that we can all support each other to keep moving your will forward. Thank you so much. We love you. I pray this in my name, Juchong, third generation member, and blessed into family, as in the Holy Mother Han. Amen. Aju. Okay, thank you everybody for coming today. So today is the last section of this set of presentations about the Ocean Era, Women's Era, and the Pacific Rim Era, and how all of these different eras that your parents have talked about are connected. So just to start us off, we're going to start with some quotes. First from True Mother, where she emphasizes the importance of the ocean. She says, "All people hope that we can recover and sustain the oceans as the Heavenly Parent created them. Covering 70% of the Earth, the oceans contain immense resources. Like a hidden treasure, they hold solutions for the dilemmas confronting the human race. I have emphasized the importance of the ocean on many occasions and have, together with my husband, suggested various approaches we might take. Accordingly, the ocean was chosen as the theme for the first Sunhook Peace Prize. So she makes it very clear that the ocean holds the solutions for humanity, meaning that the ocean is closely tied to our future." True Father talks about this as well. He says, "From now on, the biggest issue in the world will be who is leading the tourism industry. That time will come. The distribution channels in the economy will become firmly established through other industrial bases. However, the distribution channels of the tourism industry move quickly, circulating all the time. Its potential for expansion is enormous because of its circulation, and there is no place that is excluded. To build that foundation, I'm preparing to build condominiums in Sompo and Bugok. Everything is being prepared for the distant future. However, there is no one in this room with such a futuristic way of thinking. And so if we want to accomplish the plan of ocean providence and God's will, we have to understand the trends of the times and keep pace with True Parents' thoughts and plans, which is why we're talking about all these different eras that True Parents have talked about, because this is kind of the talk of the movement of history and kind of where we're headed, right? So some key points from last time, right? Ocean Providence's goal is to solve world hunger, a key problem necessary to solve in order to achieve world peace. Ocean Providence was also to help achieve unity as well. The method for this unity would have been to live for the sake of others. And so Ocean Providence is essentially the providence to substantially live for the sake of others and unite the world and establish peace. Last section, we discussed how the ocean era was inevitable and that True Parents both saw this. Through understanding historical trends, we could conclude that the ocean would be key in the future, specifically in the Pacific Rim region. And True Parents hoped that the leaders of this ocean era would be the members and be able to bring the world into an ideal world with the hobby lifestyle. And now today, we are going to finally be talking about what is the Age of Women and how is that related to any of this, right? How is Age of Women related to the ocean era? Now, so True Parents have both talked about the Age of Women, the ocean era representing the Age of Women. So we're going to be having a discussion about this, right? Since there are a lot of passages related to what exactly the Age of Women is, we are going to be focusing solely on the essentials related to the ocean providence. Now, first starting off with True Father, talking about the coming age of women, he says this in 1992. He says, until now, men have provided primary leadership throughout history as it progressed. This rally today, by declaring the beginning of the age of women, marks a historic turning point for the entire world. Throughout history, countless leaders and heroes have dedicated their lives to building a better world, yet never has there been any fundamental change to the fact that we live in a world of wars and evil. Political and economic means are unable to bring that fundamental change to the world. In the presence of the true parents, he continues, we come as the Messiah. The women of this age are the true workers that will cleanse the world of war, violence, suppression, exploitation, and crime. Women will build an ideal world filled with peace, love, and freedom. It is also up to women to see that evil forces, led primarily by men, which opposed and persecuted the forces of righteousness and good, are now completely eradicated so that they cannot cause any more harm. And so True Father talks about how the age of woman has come, right? That's undeniably what he said just now in 1992. And according to what we've been, going over the past few weeks, past few presentations, we can also understand that the ocean era has also come. Now, how do these two relate, and why is it that the age of women and ocean era coincide with each other? Well, True Mother talks about how it is not just the age of women, but it is in general the era of yin. She says, until now, in the era before the coming of heaven, we were in the era of yang, and therefore men took the lead most of the time. Now is the era after the coming of heaven in the era of yin. In other words, it is the start of the women's era. God created heaven and earth as yang and yin, plus and minus, but until now everything has been one-sided. Due to the fall of the first human ancestors, yang and yin could not move forward equally, side by side. Until then, until this era, yang dominated the world. However, now is the time for the era of yin to begin. The time has come for women to take the lead. Heaven knew of this amazing providence, and now we must also become aware of God's profound providence to open a new path in 2013. God's original plan was for a balance to be made, and that is exactly how the kingdom of heaven and earth and in heaven are to be realized. And so she talks about how there's the era of Yang, right, where the world was centered kind of on this masculinity, positivity, internal and spiritual world. And then now we're entering the era of Yin, right, where the Yin can come into place and join Yang, right, the femininity, the negativity, the external and physical realms. And so as the era transitions into this new one, right, we transition from a masculine-centered providence to a feminine one, where providence focused on the resolution of spiritual matters, we are now entering this era where we are moving toward the resolution of physical matters as well as spiritual. So we're entering this era of the balance and unity of both yang and yin. And that is kind of what the era of women relates to, this yin era. Now, Tremolo talks about how she is called to be like the ocean. She says in her memoir, to fulfill my mission as God's only begotten daughter, I have a firm belief and unflinching will for the sake of every nation, every religion, every race, and going beyond all fallen world boundaries, I am called to reconcile nations and races with benevolence and love. I am called to be like the ocean that accepts and absorbs the waters of all rivers, big and small alike. Embodying our God, who is our Heavenly Mother as well as Heavenly Father, I am called to embrace all who are lost and have no one to receive them with the heart of a parent. And so Mother speaks of the kind of nature she must have and compares it to that of the ocean. What about the ocean is actually so interconnected with this concept of a mother? Well, let's try to understand what the mother's nature is, right? According to True Mother's words, she talks about how she says, how important is the role of women? This is the era to fulfill the mission of mothers. Mothers give birth to and nurture life. Father has built a large home for us, and we must arrange and organize the internal aspects of the house. That is our responsibility. And so from this quote, we see how mothers, a part of their nature is to nurture life, right? And to sort out the aspects of the environment that is established by the father. She also says, in the mid-1990s with Serious Hearts, Father Moon and I traveled to the Pantanal region. The Pantanal is a vast wetland straddling the borders of Paraguay and Brazil. It is located precisely on the opposite side of the globe from our home country. There we worked hand in hand with farmers and fishermen. Putting an end to food shortages begins by getting your hands dirty. Rather than give sermons from an air-conditioned pulpit, we worked under the scorching sun, neglecting to eat or rest. I vividly remember pondering environmental issues as I wiped beads of sweat from my face. We launched various initiatives in the Pantanal region, and we have carried out countless other projects for the sake of humankind over the past 60 years. My nature compels me to give everything I have for the happiness of others, with no desire for recognition. I know who I am, the true mother, the mother of peace and God's only begotten daughter, and my mission is to live this way. And so True Mother talks about how she has this nature to give everything she has for the happiness of others, right? For the happiness of her children. And so we can also understand that the nature of a mother is to look to feed their children, even at the expense of their own time, energy, and comfort. And so when we take these quotes, we can come to understand that the nature of a mother has much to do with the nurturing of children, families, and through that peace. Right? What does it mean to nurture? Just like all things, there's an internal and external aspect to nurturing. Internally, the mother provides love, comfort, and care to the child, and as they grow older, they also provide spiritual internal guidance. Externally, nurturing is primarily about feeding, about food, right? Food is love is a very famous quote, right? This holds true. The nutrients that the mother gives to the child in the womb from the placenta, the nutrients that the mother gives through her milk once they are born, and the food that the mother cooks to help their child grow stronger are all this physical manifestation of a mother's love and a mother's nature. And so this relates heavily with ocean providence, right? We have discussed what ocean providence is and how, in simple terms, it is essentially the providence to feed the world. And it's essentially the providence to nurture the world. So the spirit of ocean providence coincides greatly with the nature of the mother, right? We can see if the mother's nature is to nurture love, nurture through love and food, we can see that ocean providence's nature is very related um, by being the providence to feed the world's people through the ocean's vast resources. And just to further kind of pinpoint the relationship between the ocean and the women, right, there is, when you take a look at kind of the connection between the two, you come to see that the ocean is almost symbolic and almost very representative of the women. Right, there are many more similarities between the ocean and women. Life begins in the womb, for example. And when we actually compare the ratios of ions like sodium, potassium, and chloride in the amniotic sac with that of the ocean, scientists have actually found them very similar. Right? And this is a quote from an article that says the amniotic fluid of all mammals is remarkably similar to seawater, both fluids containing the same salts in almost exactly the same proportions. Now, why did your parents see that the ocean specifically was the key to solving world hunger? Well, True Mother explains it very simply and very clearly. She says, covering 70% of the earth, the oceans contain immense resources. Like a hidden treasure, they hold solutions for the dilemmas confronting the human race. And why is this related to a woman? Well, when we study the evolution of life, you come to understand and to know the key role that the ocean actually played and continues to play in the creation, the nurturing, and the sustenance of all life. The ocean was not only the womb that provided a safe, stable environment for all life to begin, but it continues to be the life support of the entire planet, nurturing everything that is living, just like a mother does. And it kind of on this point, Sylvia Earle, who is a renowned marine biologist, has also expressed this point about the ocean being a life support system. She says, people ask, why should I care about the ocean? Because the ocean is the cornerstone of Earth's life support system. It shapes climate and weather. It holds most of life on Earth. 97% of the Earth's water is there. It's the blue heart of the planet, and we should take care of our heart. And so the ocean holds the same nature that a woman does, which is to create and to nurture life. Not only this, but we also see a shift in the marine industry, right? And when we take a look at the trends of the ocean's industry, we also see that there's a relationship between women and uh, this ocean. Right? When we look toward the ideal world where the environment is well sustained and cared for, and where we want to have true dominion over creation, there's this need to shift from an economy of linear extraction where we're constantly taking from creation to more restorative, sustainable methods and systems where we are not only taking but also providing. Right? And so we see this shift happening as the world grows more aware of environmental problems, leading to a shift from commercial fishing to growth in the aquaculture sector and sustainable marine research. And you can see this in this graph here, but you see how the commercial fisheries around the world are yielding, their yield is plateauing, and they're kind of not able to take any more at this point. And in the meantime, aquaculture continues to expand, and aquaculture research continues to expand as well to look for more of these sustainable possibilities. And as we see this shift from this commercial, from this, sorry, as we see this shift in the marine industry, we also see a shift from men and women entering the marine industry. Traditional commercial fisheries relied heavily on deep sea navigation and intense manual labor, which favors stronger men, right, and frontier type workforce. Modern marine sciences, though, uses a lot of data analysis, genetics, policy, and lab research, which women outpace men in global university graduation rates, with 53% of bachelor's and master's degrees in this field being from women. And aquaculture facilities are also often land-based or near-shore, which historically allows more women to pioneer localized fish farming and processing while balancing community infrastructure. A recent Global Ocean Science report also talks about how female researchers make up 39% of ocean scientists, which is 10% higher than the proportion of female researchers in more broader natural sciences. And so you can see that even compared to other natural sciences, it's specifically the ocean sciences that has more women in the workforce. And in places like Southeast Asia, for instance, women make up 40 to 80% of the workforce in freshwater and cage aquaculture. And so you can kind of see how there's this shift, right? Not just in the marine industry, but also women entering the marine industry. And why is it that women, and true parents say this multiple times, but they talk about how women are the ones to lead kind of this new era. And why is this the case? Well, True Father says throughout history, women have been persecuted, but I predict this will change. The coming world will be one of reconciliation and peace based on women's maternal character, love, and sociability. The time is coming when the power of women will save the world. And so, true parents want this world of reconciliation and peace to come, right? And that means the ability to bring conflicting brothers, nations, religions, races to reconciliation through the power of women to bring about peace. And what is this power of women? It is the motherly nature and the affinity to love. And it is essentially this age where men and women's efforts can come into unity as well. True Mother says there is a saying, behind every great man there is a great woman. I'm not saying that men have not fulfilled their responsibility. Father said that a woman should help a man become whole. Without a wife, a man cannot become whole. He cannot be perfected. A wife makes her husband handsome. Therefore for a man, a wife is absolutely necessary. The same goes for every woman. However, women love peace more than men. For this reason, women must lead the way. And so in this way, the age of women doesn't actually mean that men and women will be in conflict, right? It doesn't mean that there will no longer be men leaders or only women leaders. It means that men and women together will unite as leaders together, right? Women are key to creating this kind of peace by entering the equation. And so the age of women is an age where true families are also established. True Father says they call for women to develop and maintain families filled with love. My wife's dream is to see all women raised as true daughters with filial hearts who can create peace at home, in our communities, in our nations, and in the world. The women's movement began being carried out by my wife serves the goal of true families, which are the root of peace in all areas of life. And so the women's era is one where women come to embrace a feminine nature to create peace in families with love. And as we mentioned, right, the power of women is that affinity toward love. And so if we were to break down these quotes, right, women are able to protect true families and practice love, right? They're able to raise true daughters. When women are raised as true daughters with filial hearts, they can marry and become filial and devoted wives that support their husbands, and through that raise children righteously to become leaders who serve their communities. And so women are key in in this idea of being able to create families for God and for world peace. Right? It might feel like kind of a traditional and naive thinking, talking about growing up as filial daughters, getting married, supporting husbands, and raising children. But when we are talking about something grand like the age of women, it is actually essential, right? However, in today's world, where young people tend to be materialistic rather than living for the sake of the world, and when there are increasing suicides and mental illnesses, building a good family and environment is very, very essential, right? And being able to properly raise and guide youths is the most important task for achieving world peace. And so, in order to create this peaceful world, young leaders who serve society must grow up in a good family environment. Isn't it the women that should play that important role in this era? So, what is this age of women, right? It's not easy to clearly explain the age of women, but we can at least conclude the following from True Parents' words. So, the age of woman is an age where the power of women, which is motherhood, love, and affection, will reconcile the divided world. And it's also an age where women protect true families and nurture future leaders who will live for the sake of the world. And through that, through women being this vehicle, we will be able to create a world where all people live together as one family and prosper together. And so, the age of women, Ocean Era, Pacific Rim Era, and the age of opening of God-centered civilization are all connected, and True Father explains this very well in this one quote. He says, "Now the oceanic era that represents the universal women's era has begun. The culture of the oceanic sphere constitutes the sphere of the original women's culture that transcends nations and oceans. In order to create this culture, the sphere of the Pacific Rim civilization should fulfill its mission as the main vehicle for successfully passing through the labor pains of the birth of a revolutionary era of God-centered civilization, with all women becoming one in heart and body, centering on the true mother. Please take this to heart." And so, as your father said above, ocean era represents women's era. What do you think that means? Now, the ocean culture and the culture of women and both the culture of unity and reconciliation are mentioned here, and they're all related and interconnected. Right? The culture of the oceanic sphere constitutes the sphere of the original women's culture that transcends nations and oceans. So, what is this culture of oceanic sphere that he's talking about, right? Ocean providence is the province to unify the world through the culture of living for the sake of others. Therefore, the oceanic cultural sphere that must be established is one based on a culture that unifies the world through living for the sake of others. And so when he says transcends nations and oceans, we can understand that it means that it will be a realm of unity that includes all nations and the world. And relating to this, what is the sphere of the original women's culture? As we read in the previous quote, the original women's culture is to protect the environment of a true family and to raise future leaders that will live for the sake of the world. And so mothers also have this role to guide children to reconciliation, meaning that the power of women can transcend national borders for all people of the world to unite as brothers and sisters, and they are the ones to create and nurture that living for the sake of others culture. So looking at it this way, we can see that both the oceanic cultural sphere and the women's cultural sphere have in common that they are cultures of unifying and reconciling the world through living for the sake of others. And this quote also mentions how the God-centered civilization will begin in the Pacific Rim sphere specifically. Right? He says in order to create this culture, right, the sphere of the Pacific Rim civilization should fulfill its mission as the main vehicle for successfully passing through the labor pains of the birth of a revolutionary era of God-centered civilization, with all women becoming one in heart and body, centering on the true mother. Please take this to heart. And so, what is the Pacific Rim civilization, right? The Pacific Rim is the place where the human civilization will ultimately culminate after its long history, as we've mentioned in the past presentations. The aim is for the United States, Korea, and Japan to manage the resources in this specific region correctly and to guide the world toward peace. And this creates this God-centered civilization, right? And this God-centered civilization can be understood as this ideal civilization that is centered on God. And it can be said that this is the ultimate civilization that God's providence culminates to. In this way, God's civilization will open up in the Pacific Rim civilization sphere, and true mother and woman will have an important mission as the main vehicle that will lead us to this era. Now, one final point about this quote, right? True Father talks about how it's a difficult mission and how there will be labor pains. He says, now the oceanic era that represents the universal women's era has begun. The culture of the oceanic sphere constitutes the sphere of the original women's culture that transcends nations and oceans. In order to create this culture, the sphere of the Pacific Rim civilization should fulfill its mission as the main vehicle for successfully passing through the labor pains of the birth of a revolutionary era of God-centered civilization, with all women becoming one in heart and body centered on the true mother. So we can understand this to be a very difficult course, to lead the divided world to reconciliation and to build the ultimate ideal God-centered civilization, and he calls this difficulty labor pains. Now, I wanted to very briefly mention the Eve Nation or Japan, right? Because Japan is the Eve Nation, the mother nation, and I felt that is related, right, to what we're talking about here, the mother's nation and the ocean, the mother's era and the ocean era. Now, True Father briefly says, right, the mission of Eve Nation is a mother's mission, where you must genuinely pass down the traditional spirit to the world through lineage at any cost. In the future, Japan will have authority over the oceans and will possess fame. And so True Father is basically saying that the Japanese women, right, are in the position of mother, right, especially because they are the mother nation. And what is their mission? He says it is to genuinely pass down the wishes and traditions of true parents to their children, which is the world, and to fulfill them across generations through their lineage. Now, what exactly is this tradition that they are trying to pass down? From the context, it's clear that the tradition that needs to be passed down is the ocean providence, which is the providence to feed the world, right? True parents were entrusting the Japanese women of the mother nation with building oceanic industry bases all across the world to fulfill the mother's mission to nurture the world. And so that was just a brief mention of the Eve Nation. But yeah, to summarize kind of the relationship between the ocean era and women's era, we can kind of conclude that the ocean era and women's era are essentially one and the same. Right? We've entered this ocean era where we're competing. We're in this age where we're competing for marine resources and transportation routes, and the ocean is essentially becoming a very key player in, economy and everything, right? And we are also in this women's era where we are under the guidance of peace-loving women, and it's this era of nurturing God-centered families, and women are trying to bring about this culture of the ideal world. And both of these together, right, is essentially women helping to lead this ocean era, helping to lead the marine industries, right, through fulfilling ocean providence, the providence to nurture the world through the ocean's vast resources. And so that's the end of that section. And to kind of summarize everything we've been talking about for the past few sections, uh, just quickly, right? The ocean era is essentially an age humanity will compete over marine resources and transportation routes. Marine resources must be managed correctly in order to bring about world peace. The Pacific Rim era is an age that will come through the providential transition in human civilizations, and the age of hobby lifestyle is the age where humanity will live an originally intended lifestyle. And in the ocean era, women will have a role of the main vehicle to bring about a God-centered civilization in the Pacific Rim sphere, strongly correlating to the age of women. Now, to leave us with a quote, True Father says, "The ocean has everything to do with the future. Don't you know that? You have to become interested in the ocean, or otherwise you will just disappear into history. In the future, the qualification for leadership will be to know about the ocean. The basic knowledge will be how to handle a boat. To know about the ocean and to be able to go upon it will become the two basic qualifications for leadership in the future." Thank you for listening. Um, yes, so that's the end of that presentation. We will now go into the next 5 minutes of reflection, and then we'll come back for a discussion. Yeah. So I will see you guys in 5 minutes. That should be the 39th minute of this hour. right, 5 minutes is up. We start coming back. Okay. Okay, so for those of you guys who might be on the live streams, feel free to comment in the live stream chat any questions or comments. And for those of us here on Zoom, as usual, we can just go into discussion if there were any inspirations, comments, or just thoughts, reflections. Please feel free to share. Yeah, Captain Manny.
Yes, I can get started. The Ocean Providence, the hunger, yeah, that's definitely like a very important goal because the ocean has the resources, right? I think like if the population becomes bigger, there's a possibility that maybe the resources on land maybe not sufficient, to cover everyone. But I think the ocean has also a limit to the point like if it is not managed properly, I'm just taking it just whatever is around, it will obviously, if that kind of the general cycle, if that's interrupted, then it's that will collapse, that will backfire, So it has to be managed, and I think the ocean are basically is worldwide. So in the future, I think that will be that has to be like a world management system. But then, of course, if the ocean is, if the problem is hunger is solved, then that phase, I think that is then the phase when it transitions. Okay, let's have some time and enjoy. Like you said, the hobby industry, the fishing, and it's also interesting to note, like we go in space and we're researching all sorts of stuff. But someone made a comment, yeah, but you go down, I don't know how many miles deep to the ocean, and there's still things out there we don't even have a clue. There's a certain depth, I forgot what it is. It's I think the deepest point is 12 kilometers down or something. I don't know how many miles that. 20 miles below the ocean. I mean, after a certain time, there's no light there. It's just solid dark, But even in some of the steps, they're realizing there is animals swimming around, just almost no eyes, but just everything is in senses, it's reacting. Even in the greatest steps, there is different organisms, but they're all adapted to that particular environment that all exists. So that is very fascinating. Yeah, especially with the comparison with the womb and the mother, the salt water. That's very interesting to hear. Salt water is very essential. In regarding the ocean, also there's another point actually. Yeah, it's even people in long time, the ocean for many appears to be something of feminine way. Now, I remember a lot of commercial fishing boats, have feminine names, Some people their names their mother, Rusty and Gloucester, or mostly like feminine names. Now there are some boats they don't have it. And there was one shrimp trawler in the Gulf. They had it, not in Florida. It had it like make it or break it. That was good, but overall, yeah. For some reason, like the ocean is considered something feminine to the ocean, So, and that's and it goes along with that concept. Basically, they say like basically the ocean is the birthplace of humanity, right? So it is how creation evolves there. Yeah, and then of course, also of course, in order to make it make it work, what the plan is, even like helping and everything, it requires an investment, and that is all to say, it's like basically it needs sacrifice and investment, It doesn't come easy. Anything that you're reaching for a goal, it needs an investment. Like I said, the ocean is so huge. So if it's an international investment, I think it can be very well managed. Like also the aspect of farming and stuff, fish. A lot of quality of fish can be produced that way. Yeah, so those are kind of my thoughts today when you went through the content there. Thank you.
Thank you, Captain Manny. Yeah, I think you gave some good summarizing points there. Yeah, I think it's also, yeah, your point about especially how a lot of ship names are used to be women's names is also very interesting actually. I didn't even think of that, but it's true. I feel like boats are very usually considered to be girls, So that's very interesting. Yeah. Anyone else have anything they want to add?
I can add something. So this section is kind of interesting for me because it makes me think what does it mean? Because ocean era and Pacific era and even hobby lifestyle era, is kind of easy to understand. It's like you just kind of take it as it is, right? And then Trip Parents also said women's era, and then but what does that mean in reality, right? I always want to take it logically, what does it look like? So, but from this, I feel there were a couple of good points made, there were there was a section where it was mostly yang, right? And yin and yang, mostly yang in terms of history and the direction and the cultural sphere. And then kind of yin has to come in and balance it all out, because it was unbalanced before. And then kind of, the word vehicle also was good. The kind of the leading culture or leading feeling sort of vibes of the era has to be reconciliation and unity and peace. And I think it is true that women are more likely to want peace, and not want conflict, right? And then I think the bit but I'm thinking about that, and then but then if it's all women leaders, obviously nothing will ever get done because I know I'm a woman. So then it's yeah, so we need the power or the propelling force of men, but the women have to come in and kind of set the vibes. That's how I took it. And then the best point about this whole thing was the mothers need to know, because I'm a mom, right? And I have a 7-year-old kid. I know he's usually only listening to me, right? Not really the dad, he's listening to me more, right? And then mom is everything around that age. So I feel the role of a mom is more the mom actually can't just be okay, I'm gonna feed you and dress you and just make you big, but actually the mothers really need to know what kind of people the world needs. The mom has to actually know what kind of people they are nurturing to become. You know what I mean? Otherwise it'll just be a random person. You know what I mean? So I feel a point about age of women is where women actually understanding their role and then really doing the job, as a mom or as a woman or setting the vibes, whatever. But most important is I think where the moms actually try to raise people who are needed for the world, then the future looks bright, so I thought, yeah, that's a very important point because yeah, when we look at the youth today, youth of the yesterday, probably more than half of the responsibility lies in the women who were raising them, so if the women are not a good person, then the kids, they it's sad for them, you know, like unlucky moms, right? So the older moms have to be good moms, that clearly understand like what they're doing, you know. So anyway, that's what I took. But yeah, thank you.
Well, that's a really good point, I think. Yeah, I think I like in the presentation I emphasized a lot like the feeding aspect, but I think that's also a really good point about how women have to like as mothers actually know what the end goal for their child to look like is
Mm.
in order to actually raise them up to be like that. Yeah, that's true. That's a really good point. I also like how you like I like the way you phrase the how it's like vibes, like women bring the vibes, because I think that's also yeah, I think it's also true. Like it's not just like this presentation isn't saying we just need women leaders, right? Like it's kind of just like the vibe of the entire era is like to be kind of like the nurturing, like a woman, but it doesn't mean that everyone is a woman, you know? So yeah, that's a really good point. Thank you, Ma. Yeah, I think it's also like really good input because you are also actually a mom. Like I'm a woman, but I'm still like young and I don't know much. So I think it was really good for that input just now. Thank you. Okay. Anybody else? Are there any comments maybe on the YouTube, Facebook?
Not really, no.
Okay. Yeah. Mune or Reverend Cosmos?
Sure.
Yeah,
I guess. Oh, wait. Do you want to go first? Oh, okay. I guess I can go then. Regarding like the 100K talking about how it's important to have, I guess, this idea of like, um, I guess, I guess just listening to the 100K, it just made me think about how would it be best to support women in this era in a time where women are supposed to be like the main people, I think, in Ocean Providence. And honestly, I'm still a little unsure of how that kind of plays out. And I was just wondering what you guys had in mind in terms of that. Like, how would it be best to practically support women in this era? Yeah.
I think the point my mom made about how it's not really just about like women being the leaders, because like she just said, right, how like women they can like set really good vibes, but if all the leaders in the women or if all the leaders in the world were women, there wouldn't be as much innovation as there is today. Like a lot of the innovation is thanks to the men, right? But so I think there's like that point of like you need both. So I think the best way to support is just like both women and men need to work together, you know? I think the age of women doesn't mean that women take majority leadership. I think it just means that women enter the realm of leadership with men, if that makes sense. So it's not like men are giving up their leadership positions. It's more like they're welcoming in the women to work together. At least that's my understanding. I don't know if maybe Uma has another thought.
I think that's what it means. Yeah. Because there was a quote about, how like the woman, behind great men, there are always great women, something like that. In order for men to be like optimally good, the women around him have to be really good, and vice versa. So I think it just means that, it's not like one is supporting the other. It's more of an age where like complete harmonization occurs and everybody can work together in a very optimal way, So nobody's really like going back, backwards as a supporting role, but I think it's more like optimizing what they both do well, and then it was just listing the parts where women do well, and then it's very close to where, you know, the ocean era and the age of ocean and its nature, and then where we're going towards is close to what women naturally like are more geared towards, like reconciliation, peace, you know, conflict resolving, stuff like that. So I think when that enters like the leadership role and then kind of like, you know, becomes harmonized with the kind of like more explosive power of men, right? Then I think everything will go more smoothly and more optimally, right? So I think, you know, yeah, I think women were, I think we can all agree that women were always on the supporting role until now. And I think what, so I always think about this too, like Mune, like I really actually don't know either. So I'm just like brainstorming right now, but I think it just means that nobody is in the supporting role. Everybody is doing their job well, you know, or something like that. I hope that's what it means. You know what I mean?
I think that makes sense because, like, in the divine principle, there's like the idea of subject and object, right? And then when they become completely united, the the position of subject and object can be switched. So it's not like subject is always subject, object is always object. Sometimes the object takes the role of the like, right? That's like a thing in the divine principle, I'm pretty sure. I
Yeah,
think
yeah,
so.
that's true. Yeah, no, that's
Yeah,
true.
so I think that's what it is. Like True Mother, there was that one quote about the yin and yang eras, and she talks about how like when it was the Yang era, it was very unbalanced, right? Because men were always leading and women were always supporting. But now that we're in the Yin era, that's when we're coming to like balance, right? So I think it just means that like the role of supporting is not completely just women anymore. It's just that they can both be the leader and the supporter, vice versa, in this Unity era or something. Yeah. I don't know. But again, yeah, this is a like theory. Like we don't really know 100% sure either. So yeah. I don't know.
Yeah,
Did that help?
no, that's good. Yeah, thank you.
Reverend Cosmos, did you want to mention something?
Yeah, good evening, first of all, to all of us. Uh, I just wanted to add my voice to especially what Mama Minubu said. You know, I'm taking it from a restorational point of view. In the restoration history, we have always had the situations where men always were leading the providence, you know. We can see even in the time of Jesus, he was the son, there wasn't the position of the daughter, you know, substantially. But it has so much meaning in reality for the world to become an ideal family. We need the responsibility of a man and that the responsibility of a woman, you know, coming together, you know, in mutuality or in complementary, you know, kind of a complementary manner. For instance, in a family, it is difficult only for the father to be the leader. The mama must be also the leader for a family to be complete. In the Garden of Eden, God was expecting Adam and Eve. You know, they had different dual responsibilities to make that family. So it never had the opportunity, or the opportunity never came in history where substantially we had an Adam and an Eve. So, but this is the era of the true parents where we have the Adam and Eve fulfilling this mission. Practically, and in our lives, there must be a difference because we never had a kind of a mother role, you know, being projected in God's point of view in history. Only now in history that we are experiencing it with the advent of the true mother. But it's a whole feminine culture that we're talking about. You know, when God created Adam and Eve, Eve was the last creation. And the role of a woman is to gather every other thing. Nothing can easily go back to God without a woman offering it or gathering it and offering. We see the women, taking care of the children, like Mama Minobu said, mamas or mothers, do a lot of work to raise children. But like she rightly said, this is the era where we're expecting, instead of a divided world, we are thinking of a unified world. It needs that projection of that feminine philosophy, that feminine culture, that feminine pioneering spirit, and that feminine leadership. This is the only time that we're expecting it to come in history and then continue to create that original system. So this is actually the era, like we say, women must come up in a God's point of view. They have a lot of potentials. The potentials of the women never really had the opportunities to surface in history until now. And it coincides when the entire human history is culminating. The world today is in a dire need to become a one common family than ever in any other time in history. So the role of women to come up not just as followers of men, but projecting that feminine responsibility, feminine culture, feminine ideology, feminine leadership skills, to make the world a very balanced world. It's very important, to complement what men are doing. It is absolutely in a needy, we are in a dire need of it. This is a time, in fact, we really need to help the world, help our family to see that women bring that feminine culture into leadership, into taking the world forward. It's very different from the Adamic culture. We must understand that. But it is the most fundamental one. In fact, it's just the last thing God is expecting. If he saw an Adam, he was expecting an Eve. So in form of any other thing we are doing, we are really expecting that feminism in the God's point of view to come up in complementarity to the Adamic system, which now creates an ideal family culture. So this is the era. So women should really go beyond any other thing they are doing to become those who can guide the world further. Be them presidents, be them in engineering, be them in anywhere, anything they are doing, that heart to mother the world is really, we need it. The men are looking tired. The women need to come in. That is how I see it. So this is the era of the Pacific time where we're talking of unification of the world, peacefulness. Behold, it is much in the hands of women. They know and have that skill. They have that original endowed potentials. That's why we are always proud of women, that they are the last creation of God. It has so much meaning. We need that feminine godism to come up, be expressed. So I think like Mama said, we really need to support women, to fulfill this responsibility. Yeah, to me, it's not an advice. It is timely. It is a destiny. Yeah.
Thank you, Reverend Cosmos. That's a great point about how, yeah, that's true. Like, it's like after Eve was created, then God took a rest. He was like, creation is good, right? That's a very good point. Yeah, I think, yeah, I mean, you weren't even here for the presentation, but I feel like you made a very, very profound point that I think is very important to understanding this kind of concept. So thank you so much. Okay.
Now I can
All right.
expand a little bit on this one. When Father talks about this woman era, of course, training the Japanese sisters and everything, but on the world stage, if you look at many countries, the role of women is more and more expanding, more women becoming in charge of, because some of them, they do even a better job, like China. In the beginning, that was unthinkable, but now they're realizing they can do a job sometimes 2 or 3 times better than what sometimes men doing. But I think the woman area has also the aspect there, because the woman, doing child care, birthing, right, means always that the aspect of like have to protect, have to keep. And if there's many children around, have to embrace everyone. That kind of concept, So if that sentiment projected on the world level, like if that sentiment is on a world level, you know, the concept of war, it wouldn't fit. It wouldn't be fashion, you know. It wouldn't fit in that kind of atmosphere. You know, it wouldn't exist, you know. So like Munitseko means when women, you know, kind of like coming to the forefront, you know, because that aspect of embrace, you know, like really like include everyone, you know. While men sometimes have all those ideas and stuff, you know, to just, but the heart, because woman is a mother with children, you know, the heart is very pronounced in the woman, I think, also. So more from within, like almost like a, by default, some kind of a sense, you know. And I think, yes, if women from with that aspect coming together, I think it can definitely, it can, the aspect of peace, I think it's it come in reach, you know, very realistically. I think that's that era is arriving. Maybe the world doesn't realize it, but it's coming. It's noticeable, you know. Leadership in women, so many, you know. Some areas, even some women presidents and stuff. So it's kind of like it is appearing. It's expanding. Yeah, just an add-on.
Thank you, Captain Manny. That's true. I think that's another thing that we can look at in terms of like the world trends and stuff. We do see that actually happening. So yeah, thank you. Thank you everybody today. So it is past 8, I think, on the East Coast of America. So I think we can go ahead and end there. Does anybody feel inspired to give
I
an
can-
ending prayer? Thank you, Captain Manny.
Long Heavenly Parent, precious two parents. Really, thank you so much. When we hear the word, when we read the vision what our two parents have, the vision where really when the world can really see each other like a family, like brothers and sisters, and coming together and working things out together, Heavenly Parent. Family, that is a world that really, if that word comes into being, everyone is going to be happy. And nobody will lack anything, Heavenly Parent. Of course, today's world is far from it, but it's gradually processing towards it, even with many of us not realizing it. We're very grateful that we can be part of this kind of movement. And those ideas, if we can really translate them into action, invest ourselves to the best possible, change will come. Thank you so much for this seminar today. We invite you for the reminder of this day in attendance to Holy Mother Han. I pray with gratitude in my name. Meine liebe, blessed family, Haju.
Thank you. Thank you, Captain Manny, and thank you everybody on Zoom and all the live streams for joining today. Thank you so much. I will see you all next week.
Oh, yeah. Next
Yeah.
Sunday is
Yes. Ocean
initiative,
Initiative.
right? Yep.
All right. Thank you,
Okay.
everybody.
Have a great
Have a good rest
week.
of the Sunday.